Thank you, Danielle, for the kind introduction, and thank you all for taking time to join us this morning. I'd like to invite those, if you're sitting by yourself, to please join a table with others. We want to have at least 3 people at each table, and I want you to get comfortable, but not too comfortable, because we will be moving around a little bit throughout the morning. What am I going to say about these things? Actually, I want you to keep them on. I want you to text, tweet, post to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. At a great co-op session with Adam Schwartz. Wish you were here. So keep them on. Let's hear everyone's ringtone. No problem for me. So that's ground rule number 1. Ground rule number 2 is they've done a number of studies at IU, Purdue, and Ball State, and they have found that your ability to intake information if you are sleeping is absolutely nil. So I promise to stay awake for the next 3 hours, and I hope you will as well. And I've been in your shoes many, many times before, so I know that rubberneck can come on and start dozing off. Please get up, stretch, do what you need to do to be comfortable. We will be taking 2 breaks during the 3-hour session, so hopefully everyone will stay nice and refreshed. So I believe that it's always a good time to cooperate. So we will be going through a series of slides and exercises and discussions at your tables about this cooperative business model and what makes it so powerful and such an important community asset. You can probably tell from my accent already that I'm a native of the South, South Brooklyn in New York City, the rural part. And when I was growing up, if you said co-op to me, it meant housing, because there are 3 million people that live in New York City that live in housing co-ops, because they wanted a safe, reliable, and affordable place to live. These days, I live in Fredericksburg, Virginia, about an hour south of Washington, D.C., and we're close to the Chesapeake Bay, where we're famous for these blue claw crabs. And the way these crabs grow is they molt their hard shell, and they're soft shell crabs for about 24 hours. And they're very tasty when they're soft shell as well. But they know that if they're going to grow, they have to become vulnerable for a little bit and subject to predators and things like that. So I'd also ask that for the next 3 hours we be in a soft shell mode, that we share honestly and openly when we have our discussions, and then when 11:30 comes, you can put the hard shell back on and go back out and do your work. All righty? And we'll be moving around, I say, a little bit. So at its core, this is what co-ops do. It's where people come together. So some 75 years ago, folks in this part of the world did not have electricity. And they came together, they met at coffee shops or in their kitchens and talked about what they were going to do. And then about 50, 75, 60 years ago, same thing with telephone service. 9-star is an unusual beast out there, I'll tell you that. There are not many telephone and electric co-ops that have come together. I've known about you guys for quite a while. I've talked about you in speeches I've given around the country because I'm a big fan of our cooperative principles. And Principle 6 is cooperation among cooperatives. And you certainly have taken that to a very high extent by merging 2 co-ops. So congratulations on that. But I know that that comes with some growing pains as well. And I'm anxious to hear more about your perception. I got some insights yesterday during the sessions and look forward to getting more today as well. Co-ops are sort of just based on this premise that knowing that we can accomplish more by coming together. The idea that it does take a village to do things. And we do it in so many different places. There's a co-op for everything you can possibly imagine, with the exception of the military. Other than that, if you name a type of business, I can tell you that there's probably a co-op somewhere in the world doing that. So let's get started with our first cooperative exercise of the day. You're going to decide which one person is going to stay at your table and which 3 people or 2 people are going to get up and shift to new tables. So one person stays at the table, and we scramble the deck here, and everyone moves to different tables. So let's see if we can do that in 45 seconds. All right, everyone settling in? Good, good. All right, thanks for doing that. So what I'd like you to do now is introduce yourselves at your table. since obviously everyone here is affiliated with Nine Star in some way. Just tell us what you do in your job, not so much your title, but actually what it is that you do. And then say something about yourself that is personal but not private. So I'm not looking for the details of your divorce or anything like that, but just something so that we can get to know you a little bit better. So I'll start. Back in the summer of 1978, I spent that summer with my brother and two friends, and we sold Rolling Stones t-shirts around the country. We traveled the country. We were bootleggers, did not work for the band, but it was a great fun summer. So even if you remember nothing else from this session, you'll remember that Adam sold Stones t-shirts. So, all right, so go ahead, have that conversation at your tables, and we'll come back in a couple minutes. All righty, if we can wind down the conversations, appreciate it. I promise you more opportunities to talk, absolutely. So what I'm going to do now is just ping pong around the room a little bit and eavesdrop on your conversation and find out what we learned from one another. So why don't I start right here? What'd you learn about some of the folks at your table?
He really likes his new job.
He likes his new job? Okay, where's that?
He's an energy advisor.
Okay, cool. And what about some other folks? What'd you learn?
Not much.
Not much? All right. All right, problem child, I get it. All right, what'd you learn about some folks at your table?
Well, I learned that Ben has a 2-month-old baby.
All right.
And that Phil retired just 6 years ago, and this is his hobby.
Okay.
And very time-consuming, but he enjoys it. So.
Okay, great. All right, and what did you learn about folks at your table?
He has 4 kids.
Okay.
Matt has 4 kids. She has 3.
Okay.
She's been in Bosnia.
Huh? Okay.
Matt barely has any time to watch TV with them.
Okay, with 4 kids, sorry. All right, Jason, what did you learn about some folks at your table?
He's going to Myrtle Beach for a vacation. Director that is the manager of a bank.
Okay, great. All right. What did you learn about folks at your table?
Well, learned that Jim is a farmer and that Keith's getting his postdoc and is a weightlifter.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. All righty. All right. What about you? What did you learn about folks at your table?
Like a couple of interns that are working here in the summer and like playing video games and working out.
Okay. Sounds like what we do. All right. So what about you? What did you learn at your folks at your table?
Well, we all enjoy playing a little golf once in a while.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. And ma'am, what did you learn about folks at your table? Garden?
Garden.
Okay.
And he doesn't have children. He does not like children.
Okay. There you go. All right. And what about here? What did you learn at this table?
I learned that pretty much everybody's sports oriented, and they all just like kind of having a good time.
Okay, well, great. All right, folks. Thanks very much for doing that. Wow, this is what happened years ago. People just getting together, getting to know one another, and deciding what issues needed to be tackled in their community, and that's how co-ops got communities all across the country. And that's sort of the first step, is getting to know each other a little bit better. And that helps create a culture in an organization. Now, this is one definition of culture that I think that makes some sense. But when we talk about culture in the business environment, the way I like to describe what culture, a good definition for culture, is culture is to an organization what water is to a fish. It's simply the environment that we live in all the time. And they say, whoever they is, that fish don't know that they're living in water unless one of two things happens. They get a hook in their mouth and they get yanked out of the water, or the water becomes so polluted that they can no longer breathe in it. And we certainly never want the culture of our organizations to be so toxic that people can't do well. So we want to make sure that we're intentional about working about the culture. We also find that when people connect with other folks, they tend to connect with like-minded people who are doing the same work that they're doing in organizations, which can lead to a silo effect, where organizations kind of silo off. There's a consulting firm near where I live that's called Silo Busters, the idea that we're all going to be in this together and break down those silos. Because one thing that I can say with great certainty is that when everyone here was interviewed for your position, your job interview probably did not go like this. There's a great job here at 9 Star. It does absolutely nothing. We think you'd be perfect for it. Did anyone have that job interview? No. So you were all hired for a purpose. And the way I look at it, if we were to represent 9 Star's purpose by this dot, whether you're the CEO or the CFO, or you're on the line crew, or you're in member customer service, or you're in accounting, engineering, whatever your role is in the organization, you are hired for a specific purpose that's connected to the overall purpose of the organization. And to the extent that each employee, a director, and every consultant that's connected with this organization feels that connection to what the mission and purpose of the organization is, then we're going to feel very good about the kind of work that we do and very engaged in the work that we do. There was a book written a few years back called The Fred Factor. Fred was a U.S. postalman, and he was one of those postal guys who would wrap up the mail in plastic when it rained, bring the box out to the back door so it wouldn't get taken. And I can assure you the Postal Service was not paying him any extra to do that. But one of his folks who was on his route was a gentleman, Mark Brown, and he wrote this book, The Fred Factor, because he wanted to find the other Freds out there. And he was at a hospital, and he was talking to a janitor, and he asked him what he did there. And the janitor said, "I save lives." I said, "Wow, what do you mean by that?" And the janitor said, "I kill the germs that could kill people." So if a janitor in a hospital is able to feel that way about their work, I hope that all of us are able to feel that connection to our work as well. And we'll talk a little bit later about mission statements and about the purpose of organizations going forward. So we want to make sure that people are connected to what this organization is all about. And there's a growing body of evidence that culture matters in organizations. And we can, and we'll talk a good bit about that. But the idea, and we'll get your perception of what the culture here is at 9 Star. And I'm going to play a video for you right now. This comes to us from a credit union in Canada called Van City, and every credit union is a cooperative as well. And this is their annual report done in infographic manner. And as you watch the video, if you could just make a note about one factoid that kind of stands out for you.
It was very challenging trying to find a job in a country that I didn't grow up, so.
I knew the people that worked at Van City, and they told me, "You gotta come next door. You need to come and get a career instead of a job."
Instantly just felt at home.
They were so welcoming, and they taught me everything. They gave me one-on-one training. Now I'm feeling very confident when I'm on the front line.
They focus on your potential, your ability, not disability.
What Van City was doing in the community, what they were doing for the environment, really resonated with me.
I had no idea that credit unions were doing business lending. I knew I could translate my skills and knowledge to doing some serious banking there. You can live in your community and you can still advance in your career.
Well, my partner and I are a blended family. We have 5 kids. So Van City's flexible benefits package has been really important to us.
You're excited to go to work because you know the people and you know that they're always going to be there for you.
Van City is always about change. It's always evolving as an organization, and I feel like there's just so many opportunities at Van City to learn different areas of the business.
I approve loans that make a difference in someone's life.
By doing my day-to-day job, I'm making a greater impact in my communities, which means a lot to me.
That's what makes me wake up every morning and come to work every single day, because it's always a challenge.
And it really has been an amazing opportunity for me to be part of something greater.
All right, once again, I'm just going to popcorn around the room and see what one thing stood out. Sir, what stood out for you?
And this was the top 50 employer in Canada.
One of the top 50 employers? Okay. What about you, sir?
They paid a living wage and they still were profitable.
Right, paid a living wage. Great. What about you?
One of the top 50 socially responsible.
Socially responsible. Great.
Community empowerment.
The community empowerment. Okay. What about you, man?
that they were marketing their story and the impact on the community.
Great, okay. Yes, sir.
One of the first things they said is, transforming the world.
Right, big picture, right?
I felt like it was about the members and the community, the things that they could do for the community and the members.
Putting the members first, right? Did you happen to notice the employee engagement number? 75%. So the average North American company has an employee engagement number of about 31%. An engaged employee is defined as someone who is a net promoter of the business. That when they go home at night, they tell their family and friends, this is a great place to work and I really love my job. A disengaged employee is the person who, just working there, it's a paycheck. If they got another job, they take it in a second. And then an actively disengaged employee are the people who are dissing the company, saying it stinks to work there, I can't stand it. So that means that roughly 2/3 of the workforce in this country are going to work every day in a job that they're not really excited about. And that saddens me. I want everyone to be excited. We spend a lot of time at work, and hopefully we can create an attitude and atmosphere of engagement. Now, Van City, I spent a week with them last year. They do what they call an employee immersion and orientation program, where you spend 1 week within the first 30 days that you're on the job learning what this business model is all about. And then at the end of that week, if you decide that this is not the kind of job for you, they give you $1,500 to leave. If it's not the right place for you, then take the check, and it's a lot easier to deal with it at that point. So in the 10 years they've been doing this, 3 people have taken them up on that offer. All right? And they have about 2,500 employees. So it's an interesting way of making sure that people understand the culture of the organization right at the beginning. And even though they have a 75% employee engagement number, their goal is to get it to 90%. And have everybody really pulling together to do that. And all of their branches are now designed kind of like this building in a sense that there's a community room that people can use for community meetings and all the kinds of things that they do as well, because they really want to be integrated into the community. So everyone should have a pad of paper on the table. If you would rip off one blank piece of paper from the pads that are on the table, just need one piece. All right. And what I'd like you to do, and this is just your private reflection and your thought, if someone were to ask you what the culture is like here at 9-Star, what one word would you use to describe the culture here? And once you write it, if you could turn it over, put all 4 or 3 at your table in a pile, and I will come around and collect them. All right? Is there someone I can ask as a volunteer, please? A very simple job. All you have to do is hand me paper. Great. All right. If you would just hand me sheets as I write them. Okay. So I asked for one word, and the first one is committed to mission. So we'll just hyphen that. Okay. And flip charts are great, but they don't come with spell check. So forgive me in advance on that. All right. Employees matter. Caring. Stressful. Diligent. Community. Challenging. Visionary. Amazing. Segregated. Motivated. Friendly. Lost. Fantastic. Community. That's okay. Teamwork. Open. Diverse. Community focused. Explorers. Focused. Old school. Solid. Friendly. What's that word?
Invoices?
Invoices? Okay. I'm going to skip that one for now. Nepotism. Okay, involved. All right, I like that. That's better. Okay. Inviting. Family. Finally, this is usually the most popular one. So when I get family, the question is dysfunctional family, like I grew up in, or a highly functional one? So, all right, but we'll talk more about that. All right. Friendly. Elevating. And supportive. All right. Thank you for your great help. Appreciate that. All righty. Wonderful. Folks, thanks so much for your open and honest assessment of where you think the culture is here. And really, this is obviously not a scientific study. I'm just asking your opinion of what you think. I'm going to share with you what the other groups said previously as well. That's the advantage of being in the third group. You get to see what other folks said. So this was yesterday afternoon. Words stressed, siloed, transition, intense, busy, negative, great company, teamwork, united, family, understanding, confused. And then in the morning session, we had change, awful, good, satisfying, together, friendly, rewarding, family, strong, helpful, dedicated, motivated, caring. So we're seeing a pretty wide range of how people view the culture here at this point. And this is not, totally unusual. And one of the things that we'll be talking about, and you'll do another exercise in not too long, about how we can be more purposeful and intentional about the culture that we want to have. Because if we accept the fact that every organization is going to have one, why shouldn't we spend time working on it? It's kind of the operating system of the organization. And it's not something that we normally talk about. When we have staff meetings, few agendas that I've seen start with, okay, the first item we're going to talk about today in the staff meeting is our culture. You probably haven't had too many meetings that have started like that. And part of my work has been influenced on this topic by the work from Federated Insurance. Federated insures a lot of electric co-ops. And what you see at the numbers on the top of those bars are, each one of those represents a human life, and it's a lost time incident. Anything from a sprained ankle to the ultimate, a fatality. And we certainly want to get those numbers to be as low as possible. And so what was happening prior to 2007, the numbers kept going up higher and higher, and they decided we've got to do something about this. So they created a program called the Culture of Safety that they brought out to the members. And they would be very quick to say it wasn't Federated that did this, but it's each individual co-op that took it upon themselves to create a greater awareness about safety in the workplace. And you can see the positive effect it has had. But it also, last year is a little bit of a warning that we can never take this for granted. And as soon as we start to slip up on it, we're going to see an uptick again. Whose job is it here at 9 Star to manage the culture of the organization? Everyone, right. Now I can add to Mike Burrows' title, Chief Cultural Officer as well, but it is everyone's job. Everyone owns your own attitude coming in every day. You decide what you're going to do to either contribute to a positive culture or to a negative culture in the organization. Now, Federated is overall pretty happy. You can see the trend line is obviously quite good, but the uptick that we saw last year it's kind of a little bit of an alarm bell. That it's not something, safety is never something where you can say, we checked the box, it's done, we don't have to do that anymore. And culture is the same way. Culture will not change in a day, but it needs to change every day. It needs to be something that's in our consciousness of how we want to be contributing to the organizational culture. I'm going to play one more video from you from that same credit union in Canada. This is interviews with the employees talking about their job. So just take a listen and see what resonates for you.
It was very challenging trying to find a job in a country that I didn't grow up. So
I knew the people that worked at Van City, and they told me, you got to come next door. You need to come and get a career instead of a job.
Instantly just felt at home.
They were so welcoming, and they taught me everything. They gave me one-on-one training. Now I'm feeling very confident when I'm on the front line.
They focus on your potential, your ability, not disability.
What Van City was doing in the community, what they were doing for the environment, really resonated with me.
I had no idea that credit unions were doing business lending. I knew I could translate my skills and knowledge to doing some serious banking there. You can live in your community and you can still advance in your career.
Well, my partner and I are a blended family. We have 5 kids. So Van City's flexible benefits package has been really important to us.
You're excited to go to work because you know the people and you know that they're always going to be there for you.
Van City is always about change. It's always evolving as an organization, and I feel like there's just so many opportunities at Van City to learn different areas of the business.
I approve loans that make a difference in someone's life.
By doing my day-to-day job, I'm making a greater impact in my communities, which means a lot to me.
That's what makes me wake up every morning and come to work every single day, because it's always a challenge.
And it really has been an amazing opportunity for me to be part of something greater.
Once again, just going to popcorn. What'd you think of what the folks were saying? All positive, all right. They were not paid actors. I met several of those folks when I was up there. What about for some of our interns here? What'd you think? Diverse, yeah, okay, great. All right, man, would you notice anything? That's right, yeah. And so what it shows is that if we are intentional about creating that kind of environment, that we can. And for me, culture it's a relatively simple thing, right? Kind of everyone can run a few steps. It's whether we can sustain it over the long haul and maintain it. And for those of you that are very happy with the culture here, I'm delighted, I'm glad. But we also need to be mindful that we need to keep working on it going forward. That's not something that we can just, check the boxes done. I'm going to play one more video for you now. This comes to us from a gentleman named John Doerr. Not the kind of guy I would normally quote in a co-op workshop, and I only work with cooperatives. He's a hedge fund billionaire. He was one of the original founders of Intel. He now teaches at Stanford. And what he's talking about here in this video is the difference between a missionary culture and a mercenary culture in organizations. So once again, just take a listen and see what resonates for you.
One of the most important things you can look for is the culture of the place you're going to join. Culture really matters. Culture has to do with values. And in my years in the Valley, I've seen there's companies with really cultures that appeal to me and others that do not. I don't want to make a judgment about these, but just have you be tuned up for them. My partner Randy Komisar wrote a book. He teaches over at the engineering school, called The Monk and the Riddle. Great book for you to read about Lenny and his startup venture, funerals.com. But he contrasts the difference between mercenaries and missionaries, and the difference is really very profound. The mercenary cultures are quite driven, and paranoia is kind of at the heart of what drives them. I would frequently have arguments with Andy Grove. Andy would says, only the paranoid survive. And I'd say, hey, Andy, paranoia is a disease state. You know, that may not be the best way to motivate. Because instead of paranoia, you can have passion for what you're doing. Paranoia pushes you forward. Passion draws you into an opportunity. It's the difference between opportunistic and being strategic, or the difference between mercenaries and missionaries is the difference between the pitch and the deal or forming a real partnership. This difference can be seen in the time view that you have. Is this venture on a sprint to go build the next Instagram as fast as we can? Or are we going to take a very long view, the way Jeff Bezos does at Amazon.com? I'm not judging one or the other as right or wrong, but it's an important dimension. Are you going to obsess on the competition or obsess on the customers? Are you going to set up the culture so there's a kind of aristocracy of the founders who really call all the shots? Or do you want a meritocracy where you can get all the ideas on the table, have the best ideas win? It's the difference between focusing on the financial statements or the value statements. I think it's the difference between whether or not you're in a culture where there's a lot of loners and you're on your own, or there's a real emphasis on mentoring, on coaching, so that the whole team gets better. I think it's the difference between an attitude of entitlement, which I find unappealing, or the Hewlett-Packard idea that people go there, they make a contribution, it's recognized, and that makes everybody more effective. In Randy's book, he calls it the difference between the deferred life plan and a whole life, one that really works. My take on this is it's the difference between a lust for making money and a lust for making meaning as well as money. And any entrepreneur that comes to tell us that they're not interested in making money, these are the enterprise for-profit entrepreneurs, I usually don't believe them. But I think you can achieve success and significance, not just focus on success, by choosing what it is that you choose to do.
I agree with all of the things that John talks about in that clip, with one exception, is that the business model, of investor-owned business model, what's the point of investor-owned companies? What's the number one thing they got to do? Right, make money. Right? I can be an investor in Duke Energy and never take a kilowatt hour of their power. So I'm not really going to care how they treat their customers. I just want to get that dividend at the end of every quarter. And so I think everything that he talks about from certainly a missionary standpoint, co-ops can do, and we can do it better. Because at the end of the day, when we serve our owners are the same people as the investors. So there's a perfect alignment in the business model that allows us to succeed. The way I kind of describe it is when my daughters were young, I used to take them to birthday parties at bowling alleys, and they would put up those gutter guards, right? So those kept my kids from rolling balls in the gutter. They didn't ensure that they were going to roll a strike, but they kept them out of the gutter. And for co-ops, we have these rules and these principles that we're going to get into in much more detail. They don't ensure that we're going to always do the right thing, because human beings have to act on them. But they do give us this policy and this process and these principles and values to help ensure it. Whereas in the investor-owned business model, the incentives are on making money, many times to the exclusion of how well the employees are doing or how well the customers ultimately are doing. So now what I'd like you to do is have another, this time it's going to be a discussion. I'm not going to ask you to write this down on a piece of paper. I'd like you to have a discussion with the people at your table about what you would like the culture to be here at 9 Star. So if you could take a few moments to have that discussion and come up with 1, 2, or 3 words per table, and then we'll put those on the board as well. All righty, folks, if we can wind down the conversations. All right, appreciate it. You're probably used to this by now, so I'm just going to point at different tables and attempt to capture a few words if I can remember where I put my marker, but I'll use a different one, no problem. All righty. All right, so this table, what'd you guys come up with?
It's not my job, but at the end of the day, everybody has 9-star on their shirt.
Huh, okay. So what do we mean by that as a culture goal? What would that look like?
Just because it's not necessarily your job if you're there.
You should be doing it. So it's right. So this sort of greater commitment. Okay. Okay. All right. Commitment to the customer. Okay. Now, I know that this is an unusual organization when it comes to the verbiage of member and customer. I'm a big fan of using the word member because I think that it implies something a little bit deeper. I think we need to treat our members like customers as if they had choices. But I know in 9-Star's case, you actually do have customers who are not members. So that's a little bit different than some other co-ops I work with. All right, folks at that table, what'd you guys come up with? All inclusive? Okay. All right. All righty. Next table over. Better communication. Okay. All righty. This table here?
We come up with self-reliant.
Self-reliant,
Not
okay.
let our vendors determine so much of what we do.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks. This table? What?
Yeah, passion, just communication, passion.
Okay.
Attitude.
All right, great. Table behind you?
Emphasizing, more emphasis on the co-op principles.
Ah, okay. Music to my ears, thank you. All right, next table. Yeah. Okay. With partners. Okay. All right.
The coaching model / training.
Okay. Coaching is an interesting concept. You know, a lot of folks I know that, annual reviews, but that needs to be sort of an ongoing process, absolutely. All right, this Tim?
Well, and not all of our businesses, if you made mention of that, are co-op, but
Right.
the majority are.
Right.
And when I think of co-op customers, I always put a / member owner.
Right. Yep. Okay. Focus on member owner. All right. All right. Any other words folks want to put up there? All right. Well, thank you very much for doing that portion of the work as well. Because, obviously it's very important that if we're going to have a destination, we need to know where we're going. Taking a Sunday drive once and just meandering around the countryside, that's fun. But most times when we get in the car, we want to have a direction of what it is that we want to accomplish. And so by thinking about that and thinking about what our mission is and how we want to go about doing it gives us that direction. I want to take a brief little detour down a little bit of history lane here for a moment, and then post the break we'll come back and do an exercise around the principles. These obviously are some of our founding fathers, and they gave us some great documents like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, which helped create a culture in this country, one of certainly a can-do spirit. What a lot of people don't know is that cooperatives themselves have a set of founding fathers. So this is not a picture of your 9-star board. Okay, this is some of the original Rochdale pioneers who founded the first co-op in 1844. And these were the 7 co-op principles that they gave us at that time. They've changed a little bit over time, like our Constitution has had amendments. But one thing I want to point out, it says democratic control, one man, one vote. And even though it says one man, one vote, in 1844 they gave women equal right to vote in their co-op. So some 70 years before women can vote in elections here, co-ops gave women the right to vote. And the other thing that they did was this promotion of education, which is today Principle 5, this idea that we're going to have to educate people about this cooperative business model. So this is a survey question I ask in just about every talk that I give, and I get about the same response every time, but I'm going to continue to do it. How many people in this room studied cooperatives in school, from any level, from grade school to graduate school? Okay, we've got one person, and he's an outsider. We'll introduce him in a minute. What, sort of? In economics, they talked about it? Okay, great. Anyone else? So here we've got, what, about 40 people in the room. One that I specifically invited to observe what I'm doing here. He's a co-op geek, so this is Keith Taylor. And he's taught at IU and at Ball State on the cooperative business model. But other than that, and so here we have almost 1 million people in this country that work for cooperatives, yet it is not studied in school. Now that's, to me, a real shame, and that's something that we need to overcome. I teach a course at the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, Virginia, on the cooperative business model, but you know, that's just one course in one small school, and we need to have more people teaching about co-ops, and we'll discuss that a little bit more as well. But this idea, though, that we need to get folks out there educated about this. Now, of course, there's forefathers in each of the sectors, and in the utility sector as well. I was in South Dakota, and I used this photo in a presentation. Someone got up and said, "I know the origin of that photo." I said, "You do? Please tell me it." He says, "That's North Dakota in 2012. So they have a friendly rivalry there in the Dakotas, all right? But truth be known, this is circa 1939 in south central Illinois, and these folks are laying, you know, some of the first utility poles. Now, when you look at this photo and you look at these 8 folks that are planting that pole, I ask you this: was it in their self-interest to be doing it? Yes? Yeah. I would say absolutely. They knew if they wanted to get electricity and then later telephone service to their farm or ranch, that the only way that they were going to be able to do it was through pulling together and the hard work of doing it on their own. It's a very popular question these days to ask, what's in it for me? And I'm a big fan of that question. I think that's a very appropriate question. And what co-ops do is we answer the question of what's in it for me with what's in it for we. We take the individual self-interest of folks, we match them together, and that's one of the successful formulas for creating a cooperative. When people have a similar self-interest, they can then come together and create a cooperative to answer that. So this is what happened in rural America. This is what happened in my hometown, where people came together. So the average price of a 3-bedroom apartment at Penn South Housing Cooperative is $400,000. Now that sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it? It should. It's $400,000. It is a lot of money. But it's about 40% of what the average 3-bedroom apartment would cost in Manhattan, which is probably the reason why there's a 12-year waiting list to move in there. But what we do is we make things affordable for folks and give access to it, whether you're in the most rural part of this country or in the most urban. Now, I'm 56 years old. And the young people I work with, like Keith and some of his colleagues, will tell me sometimes that I'm male, pale, and stale. And I'll own up to 2 of those. The stale part is what I'm working on. But when I was growing up, this was communication for me. I was the youngest of 3 brothers. I was the remote control in my house. They would smack my head, "Adam, go change the channel." Right? I got pretty good at the needle nose pliers because the tuner on the TV was always busted. The young people in the room are thinking, what is this crazy man talking about? But this was before you could have a remote control, and you had to actually stand up to change the TV. Of course, there were only about 4 stations, so it was a little bit easier to do. But this is the dynamic today, and this is where my kids are, and young people are all around the world. This is where we are. And we need to find a way to be able to connect with folks. And there was a time when I would travel around to co-ops, and they wouldn't have Facebook pages, and they wouldn't be on Twitter because they were afraid people were going to say something bad about them. And I would give them this news alert that they're already saying bad things about them. And one of the bad things they were saying is you don't have a Facebook page, and you don't have Twitter accounts, right? And you need to be doing that. So thankfully, we've kind of crossed that bridge. But when I started back in 1992 working for NRECA, I remember talking to a director of an electric co-op, And he told me of a debate that his co-op had in 1950 whether to get a telephone or not. Because the idea was that if members wanted to come in and see him, they would just come in the door, just as they always have. Why do we need to get a telephone? So the debate just kind of changes, well, based on the technology that we're in. And we need to keep moving. Because if we're not moving and staying in tune with the marketplace, then we're going to be falling behind. So doing all the kinds of things that we can be connected. And I think it's great that you've got a series of interns. A couple have been in the classes the other day. I would hope that you're mining these young minds as well for finding out what their generation is interested in and how 9 Star can better connect to the, these are your future leaders, and we want them to stay in the community as well. All right, we're going to play a little game, and then we're going to take a break. There's a bunch of dots on that map. All right? I'd like someone to guess how many dots are on that map, and then once you guess a number, I'm going to say higher or lower. All right, and then we'll come up with the number of co-ops there are in the United States. So who's going to give me an opening bid?
6,000.
6,000. Higher.
10,000.
10,000. Higher. 15,000. Higher.
30,000.
30,000. Lower.
25.
25. Higher.
27.
27. Higher. 28 and a half. Higher. $1. That's not a number of times. We're getting real close. We're in between 28 and a half and 30. 29, yes. There are 29,000 co-ops in the United States. Now, roughly about 1,300 are utility co-ops of electric or telecommunications. There's a bunch of water ones as well. But we've got a lot of co-ops doing a lot of different things out there. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about those. So when the big hand is 2 minutes before the 8, so that gives us a 10-minute break, we'll start again. And if we start on time, what happens? We end on time, absolutely. All right, see you in 10 minutes. All right, so I left you with a cliffhanger at the end. It said, okay, we've got these 29,000 co-ops out there. What are they doing? So this is my what I call my NASCAR slide of cooperation. All right, so who sees a logo up there that's familiar to them? All right, shout it out. Which one? Ace Hardware. All righty. So Ace Hardware is a cooperative. How many people knew Ace Hardware was a cooperative? All right. So the way Ace works is it's called a purchasing co-op. So it's not like you can join Ace as a member like you can 9 Star or a credit union or a housing co-op. The members of Ace are all the individual owners of those Ace stores. True Value works the same way. Do It Best, which is Indiana-based, works the same way. And all of those owners of those Ace dealers come together, and then they do their purchasing. So when they're buying chainsaws from Stihl or drills from Makita, they're doing so, and they can get it at the same price that Home Depot and Lowe's is getting it, so it keeps it competitive. And in communities, we need to make sure that we have Ace Hardwares, because a hardware store is one of the things that every community needs. So it's, it helps keep communities vibrant. And there are purchasing co-ops serving all different kinds of businesses. Keith and I had dinner the other night with 2 gentlemen that have worked in the purchasing co-op world. One is independent stationers. So if you have an independent office supply dealer, chances are that they're a member of that purchasing co-op so that they can get paper at that better price. Small electronic shops, electric supply stores, plumbing supply stores, many of those are connected to purchasing co-ops, including this one, UFPC, Unified Food Service Purchasing Co-op, which I'm going to guess no one here has heard of, but if you ever went to a Kentucky Fried Chicken, you have patronized that co-op. Because every single franchise owner of a KFC, a Taco Bell, a Pizza Hut is a member of that co-op. So they don't buy anything from the franchise, they buy it from themselves. And in KFC's case, that's 1 million chickens a day. Not so good for the chickens, but very good for the franchise owners, absolutely. And that's a $6 billion a year business that they're in. What's another one that looks familiar to folks? Land O'Lakes, all right. So that's a producer co-op. And there's a couple of members of Nine Stars board that have been affiliated with Land O'Lakes. So that's where farmers have come together and shared their production. Well, it's not actually their production, it's the cow's production of what the cow produces so that they can sell it under that name. Cabot Cheese is another farm. Cabot is a farmer co-op in New England. And their farmers, the milk from those cows goes to making cheese. Do you know what they call cheese that's gone bad? More expensive cheese. So they've got a good business model, all right? They can make that work. And there's a time in this country's history when farmers actually spilled milk. Dairy farmers spilled milk because it was cheaper for them to spill it than to bring it to market. And what co-ops do is they help guarantee a base price for the farmers so that they can stay in business and doing what they're doing. So on the producer side, actually, oftentimes co-ops get the prices up higher to protect the farmers so that they can make a living. On the consumer side, like Nine Star, what we're trying to do is bring the price down to make the product more affordable for the end-use consumer. And purchasing co-ops help small businesses. Then another type of co-op is this worker co-op, Equal Exchange. And what Equal Exchange is comprised of roughly about 120 people. They all own the business. It's a worker cooperative. They all own it together. And what they do is they import coffee, tea, and chocolate from developing countries, from co-ops in those developing countries. They pay those farmers a fair trade price, meaning that they get paid a fair wage for what they're doing so that they can stay in business. And then they sell the product through food cooperatives in this country, through the internet, and through faith-based organizations that want to support those farmers in rural areas around the world. So very cool business model. I heard someone else mention REI. What does REI do? Sports, camping equipment, outdoor gear, that's what they sell. 4 million people are members of that cooperative. It's one of the 8 co-ops that I'm a member of, but I'm a co-op geek, so I don't take that as you have to do it. So REI, they sell this camping equipment. They were in the news about a year and a half ago around Thanksgiving time. Anyone remember why? What's Black Friday known for? The day after Thanksgiving. What do? Shop, right? All right. So you know what REI did on Black Friday? Busiest retail day of the year? They closed. Right? Exact opposite of what you would expect a store to do. Right? I would love to know how that idea penetrated through the organization. Someone had this idea, probably when they were on top of a mountain. I know what we're going to do. We're going to close on the busiest day of the year. And then they were able to get that idea, absolutely push it through the company so that they actually did it. And it turned out to be a great move. They got about $10 million worth of free publicity. They were on cable news networks. They were on front page of newspapers across the country because at the same time, Walmart and Kmart and Target were announcing that they were going to be opening on Thanksgiving Day, not just the day after. And so that what REI told their employees, go take a hike. Literally, they sell camping equipment. Go take a hike. And it turned out to be a great boon. And they said that they could do it because they're a cooperative, because they don't have outside investors who would be screaming at them. And it was at that same time they added co-op to their logo, which is obviously great to help bring awareness of the business model. CHS is the largest co-op in the country. They're headquartered in Minnesota. They have operations throughout the upper Midwest and around the world. They're in ag, feed, and fertilizer, and energy. Health Partners is also headquartered in Minnesota. That's a healthcare co-op where the doctors, the patients, and the insurers are all part of the co-op. So the doctors are actually measured on how well their patient does. Isn't that a unique way to measure healthcare in this country, by how well the patient does? If a patient needs an MRI, they will prescribe an MRI. But they will not prescribe an MRI just because they bought a new MRI machine and they need to figure out a way to pay for it, which is the way a lot of healthcare operates. So the member satisfaction is through the roof. People really enjoy doing business with them, and it would be great to see, as we continue the health care debate in this country, if people look to a cooperative solution for that as well. How many folks in this room are members of a credit union? Let's see your hands go up. Okay. Which credit union member of? Lake. Which one? Forum. Okay. Ma'am, which one are you?
Forum.
form as well? Great. So that is a consumer-owned financial cooperative. You're all eligible to run for the board and all that kind of stuff. You can be very active in your credit union. So this is just a quick little sampling of some of the 29,000 co-ops that are out there. The next series of slides are going to be the principles floating through. These 7 co-op principles, and we're going to do an exercise in a few moments. On page 3 of your book is all of the co-op principles. And they have emerged over time, and they've been changed a little bit by a group called the ICA.coop, International Cooperative Alliance. Yeah, if anyone doesn't have, there's plenty more of these handouts. The idea is we can have these principles. Those were some pretty posters that were done by a group called Cooperation Texas. And then this is a co-op in New Mexico that has decided to put them on the wall, which is great. I love seeing the principles on the wall. But seeing them on a wall, seeing them on a computer screen, seeing them on a piece of paper is all fine. But how do we put them to life? And these are our cooperative values. So in addition to the principles, we have these values. But I could have showcased Enron, which was one of the most famous bankruptcies in the United States, and they had very similar values in their organization. The big difference is they weren't living up to them. So it's one thing to have them, it's another thing to actually utilize them going forward. This is a co-op down in Texas. You can see they've got a big poster of the principles behind. This is some verbiage from their website. The idea that, talking about what a difference it makes in being a cooperative. It's one of my favorite quotes from Margaret Mead, because I think it really tunes in so well with what cooperatives are about. It's really just a group of people coming together and deciding that they're fed up with the way thing is, and they're gonna make that change. And once we decide to make that change, you can see what can happen. I'm going to play a video for you that talks about the 7 co-op principles in kind of a fun way. So take a look.
Our story starts back in 1844 in not-so-merry England, where a group of weavers, fed up with the high price of company store groceries, pooled their money to buy their own food, creating a new form of business. The cooperative. The idea caught on. Here in the U.S., President Roosevelt gave electric cooperatives a jump start with the founding of the Rural Electrification Administration, the REA, telling American farmers and ranchers, if you want electricity, you can do it yourselves. And they did. Rural men and women quickly began scraping together the $5 needed for membership and equity in the co-op. Up went the poles and wire and lines to bring rural folks what they so desperately needed, power. Soon, electric cooperatives popped up all across the country, transforming the way of life in rural America. Today, there are more than 900 electric co-ops in the U.S., bringing electricity to some 42 million Americans. So how do cooperatives work? First off, cooperatives are not for profit. Money comes in from members when they pay their electric bills. Money goes out to pay co-op expenses. A little bit is set aside for emergencies and the future. Any leftover is returned to members. Pretty sweet, huh? But it's not just about the money. Co-ops exist only to serve their members. They have a unique set of cooperative principles. All may join, regardless of race or gender or creed. That's the first principle of cooperatives: voluntary and open membership. Members vote for the directors to lead their co-op. They vote yay or nay on big issues. Majority rules. That's the principle of democratic member control. Everyone pays a little money to become a member. An owner. We call that principle participating economically. Cooperatives believe and invest in education, training, and information. That makes them smart and sets them apart. Cooperatives stand on their own 2 legs. Decisions are made locally for local people. We call that principle autonomy and independence. But cooperatives also work together. They join forces to restore outages after storms, get financing, do research, and speak up in the halls of government. We call this hallowed principle cooperation among cooperatives. It's what makes us strong. And co-ops have a heart, a big heart. They help kids and industries and communities to grow. They give to hospitals and fire stations, ballparks and businesses. Cooperatives deeply demonstrate this principle: concern for community. Community's a cool concept. Communities are just groups of people. And that is the cooperative's secret ingredient. It's the dedicated people who work day in and day out to provide reliable and affordable power. It's the elected people who shape the policies and tackle the big issues. For the most important group of people, the members. Members. The whole reason cooperatives exist. Now that's the cooperative difference. And that's the cooperative advantage. Brought to you by the passionate people of NRECA.
She can sure draw fast, can't you? That took about 15 hours to do. So the idea is obviously give you a showcase of how those principles are used. So this is part of another seminar that I do about how we get the co-op principles to really be activated. And we're doing some of the same things here today. The idea of making sure we have a better understanding of what these principles are all about. And hopefully a greater belief, and then giving you some tools that are going to help sustain it over the long haul. Spoke a little bit before about the difference between investor-owned businesses and cooperatives. And a lot of times when people talk about co-ops, we say we're just different because it's in our DNA. Well, no one sees your DNA, so we have to be talking about it and making sure that people fully understand it. And 9 Star is certainly a high-growth co-op. You've got folks moving in to the service territory. Some might have some experience with co-ops. Some probably have some experience with it but don't even know, because a lot of credit unions don't do a very good job of talking about the fact that they're a cooperative as well. So things that we can do to continue to showcase that difference and why we are different. So this is an advertisement from another credit union out in Washington State. And the next video I'm going to play for you comes to us from our friends in Canada, in which they talk about the difference between a credit union and a bank. So take a look.
Hi there, my name is Larissa, and welcome to The Difference Between Banks and Credit Unions, presented by YoungFreeAlberta.com. Part 1, Structure, Profit, and iPods. The differences between banks and credit unions begin with their structure. Credit unions are democratic, kind of like Canada. When you make a deposit, you're buying a membership. Decisions are made by a volunteer board of directors who are elected by members like you. Because the board is also made up of members, decisions are based on what's best for the people. Yay! Banks don't have members, they have shareholders. Lots of the time the shareholders don't even belong to the bank in question. That's ironic, kind of like the end of Romeo and Juliet. Customers have no say in how the bank is run because a paid board of directors makes all the decisions. And guess what? Decisions are based on what's best for the small group of investors. But wait a second, you say. Just yesterday a bank offered me a free iPod if I start an account with them. That doesn't sound like a decision made solely for the shareholders. You have a lot to learn, young grasshopper. Banks, unlike credit unions, are profit-driven. They entice you with an iPod so that you don't pay much attention to your rates after you open that account. I can't hear you, la 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 la. In credit unions, after expenses are paid and reserves are set aside, surplus earnings are returned to members in tons of different ways. Lower interest rates on loans, higher savings rates, and low cost or free services, like the Young and Free account. Go to YoungFreeAlberta.com for details. That iPod might look good now, but trust me, it'll be outdated in like 2 weeks. Meanwhile, credit union members will still be reaping the benefits. So, what does it come down to? Hey, do you like my iPod? My bank gave it to me. Hey, do you like my long list of free services? My credit union gave them to me. Owned.
This was a survey that was done a couple of years ago, in which they asked people questions about who they trust more and their perception of co-ops versus investor-owned businesses. The numbers on the right indicate how much better co-ops perform than investor-owned businesses. There were 30 questions in the survey, and in 29 of those 30 questions, co-ops ranked higher. So what that says to me is that if people know that they're doing business with a co-op, they're more likely to want to do business with them. And so that's, I think, a very positive thing for us going forward. All right, now, I've been threatening that we're going to be doing this exercise for some time, and now the time has come. So I need everyone to kindly stand up, if you will, and move to this part of the room and stand in a straight line going across the windows there. All righty, are we all in one good line? Wonderful. I want you to imagine you're back in middle school or junior high school, whatever you called it, and we're going to do a count off to 9. All right, so we're going to start with you, sir.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
9,
1, 2,
3,
4, 5.
Okay, I have put sheets of paper on the table that correspond to different numbers. If you would find that table number and join that table, you can pick up your stuff from your other table and then join your new table. All righty, everyone's settling in nicely. Okay. Is there any confusion? Someone didn't take their stuff? Okay. All right. Yeah, all right, and your orange peel, there you go, good. All right, everyone's settled in? Good, good, good. All right, and so we have 9 tables. 1, 2, 3. And there's 4 at this table? 4 folks? Yes, and 4 at this, 4 here. How many at your table? 3? 3? 3, 3, 3, okay. So for the purposes of this exercise, these 2 tables are actually going to come together, and these 2 tables are going to come together. All right, you could start to do that now. That'd be good. All right. Because here's what we're going to do. If you flip to page 3 on your handout, if you need another handout, there's plenty. All right. And what I want you to do is have a discussion at your table about which one of these 7 co-op principles you would like to do a deeper dive in. And when I say deeper dive, I'm going to be asking you to be talking about how well 9-star, what are the 9-stars doing to live up to that principle right now, and what more 9-star could be doing in the future. So once you have that discussion about which one of those principles you'd like to do that deeper dive in, you're going to let me know by shouting it out. Once you shout out the number of that principle, that locks out any other table from picking the same principle. So we have 7 tables, 7 principles. See how this works? All right. So do that for a moment. Once you yell it out, I'm going to write it down, and then that's it. No, another table is going to have to pick somebody else. 6 in the back. 5. Who said 5? 5 right here. Okay. 7? 7. Okay. So 6, 5, 7 are done. 1. Okay. 7's done. 2. Okay. 3 and 4 are left. They're 2 of my favorites. Okay. And 4. Okay. All right. Just to recap, which table's doing number 1? All right. Which is doing 2? 3? 4? 5? 6? 7? Great. All right. Thank you. So now what you're going to do is talk at your table about how well 9 Star's living up to it and what more you could be doing. And then what you're going to be doing is putting together a brief presentation to showcase your work to everyone else in the room. Now, the only requirements of that presentation are that everyone at your table has to participate in the presentation. I don't care what you do. You can come up here and do interpretive dance. You can do finger puppets. You can play charades, Pictionary. You can have a press conference. Whatever it is that you want to do, that's up to you. Just that everyone has to participate. I will walk around the room. If anyone needs a little help, I'll be happy to give you some guidance. But this is your show. Going to give you about 7 minutes to work that out. And then we'll start the performances. All right, thank you.
We're principle number 2, which is the democratic member control. We're neighbors, just to set the scene for you. We're neighbors. Okay, we'll go. Hey guys, I just got my monthly newsletter. It looks like they're soliciting nominations to be on the board.
I work in the tech industry. I might have a few ideas that could possibly benefit this company.
Cool.
You know, I've been a member of this community for numerous years. I own a farm, and I've been on a couple of different boards already. Maybe that's something that I'd be interested in.
Well, if you guys are really both interested in being a part of the leadership of the cooperative, you can be nominated and run for election. They have an annual election at their each year, the annual meeting. If you guys are interested, maybe you should consider that.
Well, so how does that even work? I mean, do they have to like run campaigns?
Well, the cooperative each year sends out in their bi-monthly newsletter a request for nominations from the membership looking for interested candidates. So you could fill out that application, send that into the co-op, and they will then review your application, and you could be considered to run for election. And then each year they have an annual meeting where they have a nice dinner, bring in all the membership. They get to the opportunity to vote for who they think would be best representative of their interest in the cooperative. And you could be part of the leadership.
I think I might look into that a little bit.
Good luck.
May the best man win.
There you go.
All right, great. This idea of democratic member control, one member, one vote, that everyone has that opportunity. So to the board members in the room, you can see potential competition here for you as well. But that is really obviously key to what makes us special, and encouraging people to vote. So here at 9 Star, how do people vote for board elections? At the annual meeting. And as I understand it, they have to show up to the annual meeting because state law required that they do so, but the state law has just changed that will allow if co-ops choose to do so. So that's something that I think there'll be discussions about in the future. So that's great. All right, thanks very much for that. All right, does this group want to go next? Beautiful. All right, please stand up, tell us your principle, and speak loud.
Our principle is number 4, autonomy and independence. And I just met these guys. I grew up on a farm. I know absolutely nothing about a co-op. I completely in the dark when we started talking about this. And when we broke it down and started talking about, these guys informing what a co-op is and what a co-op does. And I really feel privileged to be able to sit with them this morning and learn. And by the way, the slower we talk, the less you'll hear.
One of the things that it points out is if a co-op enters into an agreement with other organizations or raises capital from external sources, that's something that we've started to do, combining with other co-ops and RAMCs. And that's something that runs through our board. We just kind of share the pie with profits and things like that.
And Ronnie and I both being in the same department, we do sort of the support side of the thing, and we see these partnerships kind of happen with Perry Spencer and some of the other partnerships that we have, where we actually get calls from other organizations, Johnson County Fiber Network, into the support center, where we actually take their phone calls and support their customers. So we see these partnerships that have been voted on by the board. We see them every day by supporting those customers.
Just NISTAR does a really good job of leveraging all the technology and the resources we do have to make sure they're not going to waste, and they put everything they have back into the company to better the co-op and the customers.
So you guys are telling me then that that the co-op is basically self-governed the way we operate, and where the directors are elected by the members, which is self-governed, and then when the director enters into an agreement with these other organizations or whatever, it's supported by the membership, and if it's not supported by membership, probably those directors will get beat at the next election. Would that be the way you would interpret that?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Somewhat.
Well, I think that, as a conclusion, that's a good place for us to quit while
Okay,
I'm
all
still
right,
on
that's a
the
good
board.
place for us. So there's principle 4, autonomy and independence. The way I like to describe this principle is that if you've seen one co-op, you've seen one co-op. Because each one has their own vibe and their own board and the way they deal with things. Now, obviously, we have these unifying principles, but each one gets to make their own decisions. All right, which group would like to go next? All right, there we go. All right, speak nice and loud, please. Great.
So we are covering the third principle, members' economic participation. So imagine there's a power source, and it's going to cost me $4 to charge my phone. It's a one-time charge. Well, I can decide I would like to pay less, so I can invest in a second cord, and I've recruited Jason to share in this co-op, and now it's going to cost us $2 a piece to charge both of our cords, or our phones. So we need to figure out a way to reduce our costs a little bit less. Jason, do you have any ideas?
Well, since you recruited me and it put down my costs, we can get somebody else for it, and then that would put our costs down even more.
Excellent. Do you have any ideas, and who?
We could get Matt.
Well, it's going to cost us a little bit more to buy a third cord. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
I am too. Well, let's do it. Now Matt is in our co-op, and it costs us a little bit more than $1 to charge our phone. Matt, I would still like to pay less. Do you have any ideas?
Well, we could collectively decide to increase our membership to lower our cost. We could invite Julie here into the co-op and reduce the cost between the three of us by increasing to a fourth.
Excellent idea. You have thoughts on that?
I think it'd be a good idea.
I do too. We all three decide to bring in Julie. Julie's a part of it. We have 4 cords. Now it costs us $1 to charge our phone. Went from $4 to $1 a piece. That is economic participation.
A slightly different take than I've seen in the past, but I like it. It's good. So the idea that as we're going to add more consumers to the co-op, we're going to be able to share those costs greater, and folks, their economic participation in the form of paying their bill will be reduced. The converse of this as well is that after the co-op makes money, which we call margins, that then is returned back to the members in the form of capital credits, which is another key way that we show the co-op difference. And I know that the way you do it here is the way I recommend. You send out the checks around November with a happy holidays greeting, so it's a good time to do that. So it becomes a marketing tool as well as an educational tool and a financial tool. So thanks, folks. Good work. All right, I heard this group said they wanted to go next. All right.
We have Principle 5. Principle 5 is education, training, and information. Let's go ahead and.
Yeah, so as far as education is concerned, we do a lot of outreach with the community. We do conferences. We have our meetings, our annual meetings. We have our meetings here at NISTAR where we discuss everything that's happening with the company, and also external for our members. So we kind of go over a little bit of everything. We do have our formal training that we offer the employees, so we can go out and or even do internal training through videos or through the internet access nowadays. We have the ability to go out and go to conferences. So many of us are able to travel out and bring all that knowledge back, and then provide that to our members. As energy advisor, I get a chance to speak out to all of our members via phone or email communication. Gets to educate the members, let them know how they are a part of the cooperative, and we do a lot of workshops, 4-H workshops. We put ourselves out there in the community so that we can educate the community. Also let them know that we're there for them. Nine Star also makes charitable contributions. We have obviously interns that come in, so we all help each other. We help the interns in turn help us by letting us know, how we can maybe better the co-ops by kind of staying up to date with everything. But we can also help them with their career paths and. Anybody have anything?
No, that's about it.
We need everyone to say something. Gotta have to say, well, everyone's gotta participate.
We help out in the community. We help out in the community through we have, what's it called? Community Day, and they help out with beauty pageant, the beauty thing in the fair every year.
Go Hawks!
We have the nerd training every once a month. Right. I think everyone meets in here.
Yeah.
Just go over whatever they do.
Cool. Okay, great. All right, thanks so much. Appreciate it. This idea of education, training, and information, and I also understand that you guys do safety training in schools, right? Like fourth graders.
Yes.
Fifth graders, okay? You go in, you fry a Barbie doll or something, right?
Hot dog.
I'll tell you, it's very effective. It's traumatizing for the young people in the classroom, but it's very effective. They really understand the power of electricity. So yeah, no, thanks very much. And what I encourage folks is when they go out into schools and go out into the community doing specific training, whether it's a nerd night or safety training, that we also include the fact that we're a cooperative. That we talk about that as part of the training as well. So great, good job. Okay, which table wants to be next?
In this scenario, I'm a new person to the area. I just bought a home and I'm looking to get some internet services in my house. And Shane here is my neighbor, and we have a small conversation. So I just bought this new house. I was wondering if I could get some internet service. Do you know of anybody that I could go through? Or?
First off, Ben, welcome to the community.
Oh, thank you.
Come on in, could I offer you a beer or something?
Sure.
You know?
Sounds great.
Yeah, as far as internet service goes, I used to have Comcast, man, it's just terrible. I recently switched to 9 Star. It's a community cooperative. Great people work there, great service. As a member, we become part owners in the company. So I would highly recommend notifying 9 Star and letting them know your interest and what you're looking for.
Okay, sounds like a good idea. I think I've had other businesses for my internet, other services, and it didn't really work out too great. Their customer service wasn't really the best, but this sounds promising. I'll go ahead and I'll get in contact with them. Thanks.
Oh yeah, no problem. Good meeting you, Ben.
You too, Shane. Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Ben Tuttle.
Wait a minute. Hi, how can I help you?
If you couldn't tell, we're currently at 9 Star now, and now I'm speaking to him about
customer service, baby.
Hi, nice to meet you. I was wondering if I could get internet services set up through you guys. And I also heard that you guys, from one of my neighbor, I heard you guys were a co-op, and I was trying to get some more information on what that was all about.
Okay, well, who's your neighbor?
Shane?
Oh, jeez. Anyway, yeah, here at NISTAR, we are a co-op. What is your address? I need to look your address up to see if you can qualify to be a member. Just because you're next to Shane, you might be right there at that dividing line.
Okay. 236 Tallulah Lane.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so we can provide you with services. As a co-op, we, NISTAR can provide you with electric, broadband, that was perfect, broadband, phone, internet, did I say that? Yeah, broadband. And we do have other services. Any of those that you're interested in?
Actually, I would need a cable set as well, if that's possible.
So TV and broadband?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll get that started, and I'll also let you know some of the other services that we also offer. So as a co-op, there are a lot of other services that we also do.
Okay.
That's Jim.
Okay. As a co-op, we're a nonprofit organization, and you become part owner in it. And any profits that we have over the year from your services and all will be allocated back to all the members and capital credits, and it's based on the amount of services that they purchase from the company. And then normally on an annual basis, we will distribute some of those capital credits back to you, which, you know, you'll get a return on your money where you don't get, you know, from a regular company.
Okay. Thank you very much. That sounds a lot better than some of the other businesses I've been with. So I look forward to doing service with you guys.
Thank you, Ben. Be a star with NISTAR.
Great, thank you. Again, NISTAR's in a little bit of a unique place because of the way it's set up. If you're just an electric co-op, that voluntary part can be a little bit difficult, because if you live in the service territory and you want electricity, you need to be a member. I remind people that it was once voluntary, and that there were some farmers back in the day who said kerosene's good enough and we'll just let the electric lines go by us. Of course, that's been filled in now. But I also, give this caution that someday again on the electric side we might be voluntary again with distributed generation and people having the ability to put rooftop solar and generators. That at some point we should not take for granted our members will always be members on the electric side. So treating the members like customers, making sure that they want to do business, not that they have to do business with us, will serve us well in the future. So thanks, nice job. All righty, we got 2 tables left. Who's going?
Well, our principle is number 6, cooperation among cooperatives. And we're going to talk about some of the enterprises that NISTAR is involved in. George, can you tell us about mutual aid and Indetel?
Sure. On mutual aid, I said obviously the staffing of the cooperative is important, to be staffed to a certain level. But if a major natural disaster, a major event comes through an area, obviously I can't employ 100 linemen for that once a year, once every 5-year event. So mutual aid between cooperatives, at least in this case with linemen, they will group together where linemen that maybe weren't touched by storm damage, and they will go to a single cooperative to pitch in to get people's power restored in a timely manner. And people aren't without power for weeks and months like they would be if they had to do it with their own staff. Another side of that mutual aid too is our engineering group is part of the cooperative listserv. So if we're experiencing something or we want some information on another piece of equipment, other cooperatives we can put a question out there to all these other engineering and cooperatives and get a lot of feedback on what they've experienced, or are they having a similar issue, or what their experience is with a particular piece of hardware. Indetel is part of what Nick is going to get on in here of Indiana Fiber Network. If I need access, if we have a customer or a member that also has maybe another facility up in northern Michigan or out in Utah, and they need connectivity up there, obviously NISTAR, we can't build fiber out to Provo, Utah. However, the Indatel network may have other cooperatives that they have fiber networks on that we can get a circuit out to Provo, Utah.
Thank you, George. Nick, follow up on that with Indiana Fiber Network.
Indiana Fiber Network is a great example of cooperatives cooperating together. It is actually owned by several cooperatives. And if you haven't seen it, it's basically a large circle through East Central Indiana of fiber network that allows traffic of data, video, telephone services among cooperatives. So it's essentially a company that's owned by cooperatives to help cooperatives.
Thank you. Ben, talk about Indiana Video Network.
Yeah, Indiana Video Network. As part of Indiana Video Network, we help pipe the video network to 8 heads along the IFN ring, and anybody along the IFN ring can actually receive a signal from the Indiana Video Network.
Okay. Julie, you want to talk about our partnership with Johnson County RMC?
Absolutely. So as Johnson County REMC was deploying fiber for their smart meters, and then of course that next step is looking to serve communications, and rather than forging the trail themselves, they chose to partner with a communication company. So 9-Star Connect Communications now is the provider in Johnson County for broadband video, phone, and home security, Matt. So we currently, we're working with the fairgrounds to get the fair up and going for the 4-H fair, and we have a number of businesses, and just met this week with the residential side as they start growing there as well. So wonderful cooperation amongst cooperatives.
Very good. Tom, maybe you could talk to some of the activities that are out there in the future of what's going on.
So it became widely known over the last 2 years that the initial merger between Hancock Rural Telecom and Central Indiana Power was the first in the continental United States. With the acquisition of sewer and water and the integration of all of that in 2017, became widely known that 9-Star was the first in the nation to have integrated successfully all those services. And we began being drowned in contacts and calls about how we did these partnerships and give us some advice. And we under the guidance of the board, decided to follow the cooperative principles, and we formed 9-Star Knox and 9-Star Rocks. And 9-Star Rocks is a consulting venture where we're going to use these principles and charge at some point all these similar co-ops around the country to provide them guidance and support as they get going with their own initiatives. And we're going to use that to cover our costs, set up a small reserve, and then return patronage to those that are members of this 9-Star Rocks new venture.
Thanks, Tom. And then you mentioned the merger. I'll talk to that since I was here at the time. That we were the second merger of a telephone and an electric cooperative in the United States. The first one was a small town up in Alaska. Today we are still, 6 years later, the only co-op that is the result of a combination of an electric and telecom co-op in the United States, in the continental United States, and moving on in lots of different directions.
Cooperation among cooperatives. I like talking about it sort of within the family of other utility co-ops, but also looking how we might be able to partner with other types of co-ops as well. So there's a credit union and an electric co-op that have partnered in Virginia. The credit union provides financial counseling and budget skills to the members. Because are there any members here at 9-Star that occasionally don't pay their bill? Yeah. So we have that issue, so we can work to resolve that as well. Great. All right. Wow, this group is teed up. They don't need any encouragement. All right.
We have concern for community
as we all do, right? And we determined that none of us here can sing or dance, so it's going to be more of a lecture style, if you will, please. Concern for community comes out of our member ownership, and our member ownership determines what kind of communities we all want to live in. We are participants in many activities within the community, and if you look around the organizations, the service organizations in and around our service territory, you'll find a member of the employee group or the board of directors or the board of directors participating in many or all of those community service groups. We also are very active in the 4-H program and have been for many years. 4-H Electric specifically, we're active and participate and support the 4-H electric or 4-H fair, specifically through the participation with the Queen contest and the sponsorship there. We also are very active in sponsorship of many activities within the 4-H program in Hancock County. We mentioned, or it was mentioned earlier about education. Our education outreach is a very big part of our community involvement in the schools specifically, and also in other community organizations. We're very active in promoting electric safety within the communities that we serve, and that knowledge, that understanding of being safe in and around electricity is very key to our community outreach. Economic development is another area that we're very active in, and we have been here again as the electric co-op was and Hancock Telecom. The merged co-op of 9 Star is even more involved in economic development, as is witnessed most recently by our involvement and activation in water and wastewater treatment. So, Alan, you want to take it?
Sure. We also offer many free seminars to the community, and those are open not just to our members, but really anyone in the community. We hold them both here and other places, and one example of that would be our 9 Star Nerds Night, where we will hit on relevant topics such as keeping your information safe online and keeping your PC from getting infected with malicious software. We also offer free cooking shows, and really we just want to engage our members and those that aren't currently members. Just let them know that we're not just here to take your money. We want you to be well informed.
Some of our other things that we participate in with the consumers and our members is we have the Operation Roundup Fund, where the members actually put money into the Roundup Fund, which is voted on the Roundup Board, which is made up of the members, and it is distributed to other community groups or organizations that might ask for participation and help on a special fund form.
Also, as a company, in our concern for the community, we do a cooperative service day where over half the employees volunteer time to help small businesses, residents. For instance, we did it for Renzi Animal Hospital. The NetOps team volunteered to help them get things done around the business that they can't do by themselves.
So a few of the things that we identified that maybe we could do a little bit better as a cooperative was, I guess the education / communication of what a cooperative. We talked about millennials and how they don't even probably know that they're a member of a co-op. So that kind of education to our membership, not saying we don't do it, but do we get creative and do it different ways, those kind of things. More involvement was discussed in surrounding areas or surrounding counties more specifically. I know we're heavily involved here in Greenfield and Hancock County, but some of the surrounding counties that we have memberships in, I think maybe we could be more involved with that, and that's again employees, directors, those kind of things. And then we also talked, the third thing was about maybe the same thing with employees, educating employees on what a co-op is and the education programs that we have, other programs that are there. It was mentioned, I think, in one don't know if we did this in this one or the last exercise, but, you know, sometimes you're kind of, you take a job here, not just here, but anywhere, and you're kind of just thrown at it. So, you know, could there be a better formal program of training that can be involved that basically educates you on those kind of programs as well? So that's all I have, but I'll leave it with an outsider who might have a different view of what he's heard in the industry.
What I think is really interesting about what y'all do, though, is you look at a community problem and you do a service in order to meet the need. So getting into rural sewer and water kind of issues, that's not exactly the best business proposition to get into. But you guys, it seems like y'all realize someone's got to take care of this. So you're able to wrap the co-op model around it, you're able to make it economically viable, and now you're taking care of all these folks in these rural areas, and that's great. But then what also allows the co-op to punch above its weight, because if you're just a rural business and you're isolated, then you're going to be subject to all these market whims and all this sort of thing. Well, you're connected, you're statewide, you're connected to your national, so you've got market and political power on top of that. So you guys are able to get electricity for good rates, you're able to connect to broadband, and drive these values home to folks in rural communities that I don't think is talked about enough. And that itself is a community economic development feature that you guys are doing that's really impressive. But then beyond that, what I'm hearing here too is you're also sending folks off to Guatemala to do international development. You're sending young folks here off to youth tour and that sort of thing. So everyone talks about rural America as if there's a lot of problems, but then there's these co-ops who are doing amazing things that not only bring good services back to rural America, but then you guys are also taking folks out to get them exposed to other things. So I think that should not be overlooked as well.
Mission statements. What's the mission statement here at 9 Star? Anybody? All right, it's on that circle thing right there at the sign-in table. The mission statement of the Cooperative Way is to help co-ops succeed. Do you know why I like my mission statement? Why do I like my mission statement? Because I can remember it. All right, that's a beautiful mission statement, but it's way long, right? And if we can't remember our mission statements, then what's the point of having one? I go to bed at night knowing what my mission statement is, and I wake up in the morning knowing. Now, what does helping co-op succeed mean? That depends. With each client, it's different. Today, it means hopefully that I'm going to impart some good information about the cooperative business model that's going to re-energize folks and make them feel good about working here. So that's, I think, mission statements need to be concise, to the point, say what we're going to do. This was a study that was done a couple of years ago by NRECA about the cooperative purpose, and they came up with this sort of purpose mission statement is power communities and to empower members to improve the quality of their lives. I think that's great. When you think about all the things that 9 Star does, whether it's in electricity, telecommunications, water, safety, all of these things are to improve the quality of people's lives in the community. And that's a great mission to have, and allows people to sort of self-interpret it a little bit. So, and I'm not a one that thinks you got to have a week-long strategic planning retreat and stare at your navel and hit gongs and do things like that to come up with a mission statement. I think it can be done pretty quickly, just getting to the core of what we're trying to do. Back in 2012, the United Nations declared it as the International Year of Cooperatives, which is a wonderful thing. The only problem is no one heard it. It was the tree that fell in the forest with no one around to hear it. So the International Cooperative Alliance, ICA, created this blueprint for a cooperative decade designed to help co-ops showcase the fact of what we do in the marketplace. And this is sort of the executive summary of what they came up with. And this was a group of people from about 20 different countries that met for a year and a half. So when we talk about participation, how do people participate here at 9 Star? How do the members participate? Purchase services, and then pay for them, hopefully, every month, right? That's one. All right. How else? Well, how often do they do that? Annually, right? So that's a once-a-year activity. All right. The Operation Roundup, all right? That's another way that people participate. Coming to Nerd Nights, doing all the kinds of things that create connective tissue between you and your members and customers is incredibly important, because you want them to think first of 9-Star when it comes to any of the products or services that you're offering now. And who knows, if I come back next year, I'm sure you'll be offering something else new the way you're going. So you want to be, obviously have that kind of action with your members. On sustainability, sustainability has this connotation of an environmental tone to it, and that's fine. We all want to breathe clean air and drink clean water, but it's also what co-ops are doing to make their communities sustainable over the long haul. And obviously you're doing a wonderful job there. When it comes to identity, this idea of creating the awareness about being part of a co-op. Are you folks familiar with this Co-op Connections card? Folks familiar with that? I hope so. So this is part of Touchstone Energy, which allows your members to get discounts at both national and local businesses. I think one of the things that we could be doing with this is having some of the young interns potentially go door to door to local businesses to get more local businesses to sign up for discounts as well. And it's a wonderful program, and it gives the members a physical card that they can touch and feel. On the legal framework, there are still a few countries in this world where it's illegal to be a cooperative, so the ICA works to change that. In this country, it means that the folks in Indianapolis or in Washington, D.C. aren't going to do things that are so silly that's going to make us difficult to operate our businesses. And never underestimate their ability to do silly things. I say that as a former lobbyist. But one of my best days as a lobbyist was when I was lobbying on behalf of NRECA, and I lobbied Bernie Sanders, and we all know who he is, and I also lobbied a guy named Jerry Moran, who's a very conservative senator from Kansas. And they both agreed with me about cooperatives. And that was one of those light bulb days for me. We're not on this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle, we are the aisle. And that's just a very cool place for co-ops to be. And I think bodes well for our role in the future of our society. When it comes to capital, electric and telephone co-ops are in a great place. You've got RUS, you've got CFC, you've got CoBank that are all knocking down your door to lend you money. There are a lot of co-ops in this country that are not as fortunate. And so one of the things I look for is how co-ops can help other co-ops in their financing. So there's a program called Red Leg, Rural Economic Development Loan and Grant Program, that allows utility co-ops to borrow money from the government at 0%. And back when I was lobbying, we tried to get them to go less than 0%, but they just wouldn't budge on that. And then co-ops can then re-lend that money to other businesses. And in some cases, they've lended to other co-ops, which I think is very cool. And I'll show an example of that in a moment. The idea that what's happening in the electric industry now is this massive change in the way people are going to be able to access those kilowatt hours. For those of you who come from the telephone side, this is going to be nothing new because you've been in a very disruptive market for quite a long time. And the idea of what we can do with that disruption to make it helpful for people to be connected. One of the things, this is just a nice picture of a cloud, so, what I say is that if we want things to stay the same, we're going to have to change. And what I mean by that, if we like our market position where we are, the world keeps changing around us, and we're going to have to make sure that we keep up with that change. It's like those moving sidewalks in the airport. If that moving sidewalk is moving slower than I can walk, I'm not going to take it. Right? I need to be in tune with what is happening in the marketplace. And folks, interact with change in a variety of different ways. Some of my thinking on change evolved when my youngest daughter was 6. She's 21 now. And we were having one of those spirited conversations that you have with your child about what television program to watch. And we came to a successful conclusion about that, and then we both grabbed the remote because we wanted to hold the thing that could change the channel if we needed to. We wanted to be in control of the change. And I think that's the way people are. If people change eyeglasses, hair, clothes, all those things, but they control the change. It's when it's imposed upon us that's when we have some problems. I want you to think for a moment about the colors in a yield sign. Don't say anything. Just think to yourself what those colors are. All right, you've got that. Now, how many of you thought that this was the answer? Go ahead, raise your hand. Go ahead. All right, all right. And how many of you thought this was the answer? Okay, it's red and white, and it has been for 30 years. So for those of you who are thinking yellow and black, we got some updating to do. Now, when this was done to me about a year ago, I would have bet my house it was yellow and black. This was the dumbest question. Why are you even asking? This is such a stupid question. Right? And it just goes to show us how baked in our thoughts get. And even though we see a yield sign every single day, and for those of you who are thinking yellow and black, you will see those red and white yield signs for the rest of your life now. Have just changed. That's the only way you're going to see it. All right? And it's hard for us to change our mind. Right? We have to work hard to do that and be open to it. But few of us would disagree that changing our mind is a bad thing or changing the way we do things. Clearly doing laundry like this is not that much fun. When I go camping, my camping trip ends when I have to start doing laundry. Right? I am not washing my clothes in the river. That's when the trip ends. Right? Right? So we know that change as it comes to society is a positive thing. It's just the level in which we deal with it. Now, not everyone is on board with the same pace of change, right? And the way people absorb it can be different by different folks. And there's ways that people handle it. Some are positive and some not so much, right? But we know that if we embrace change and we start to deal with it, we can think of it in a very positive way. So for the board members who are here, and some have been on the board for a while, how do you get your board books these days? Electronically, on an iPad, right? How'd you used to get them? Right, 3-ring binder, probably get a crook in your neck as you're walking into the room, right? If I told you you're going back to a 3-ring binder, how would you feel about it? In no way, right? Now, when the iPad was first introduced, you probably weren't that excited about the iPad because, now it's a new way, I got to deal with this. But once we get used to the new change, so there's that rough time when we're going through it. But then when we get there, it's good. Now, for those of you who are, supervisors of folks, if you're introducing a change or, just anywhere in your life, you might ask where people are on this chart. And once we see where they are, then you can make a plan for how you want to deal with it going forward. So obviously we want to get to integration as fast as possible. And we also want to get as much buy-in. If I was going to change the operating system, and I know you folks use NISC, and they're one of my clients, so I love them. I mean, you wouldn't change out that system without talking to the people who are going to use the system and ask them what are some of their challenges and what would they like to see resolved. And then we can get to a place where we're integrating the change much better. Programs where we orient new employees, contractors, anyone who's dealing with the company so that they understand the 9-star way and what a cooperative is all about is critically important. This is one more video I'm going to play. This comes to us from NRECA, talking about the change in the marketplace from when the co-op got started to where we're going in the future.
Imagine, if you will, what it must have been like after dark in the farms, ranches, and small towns of America 75 years ago. Before there was power. Before there was electricity. But that was all about to change, and change it did when farmers, ranchers, and rural families banded together to shine a light on the need to turn the lights on in rural America. Cooperation created the electric co-ops, and the co-ops created a movement so profound that President Franklin Roosevelt said, "The forward march of electric cooperatives has an even more profound significance in terms of our fight to preserve democracy." Is there any finer representation of democracy at work than neighbors helping neighbors? When the electric co-ops were born, something much bigger happened. For when we turn the lights on, we help democratize the American dream for the people, families, farms, ranches, and businesses of rural America. The effect was so powerful that in 1940, a man sitting in a pew in a small rural church in Tennessee was moved to say, Brothers and sisters, I want to tell you two things. The greatest thing in the world is to have God in your heart, and the next greatest thing on earth is to have electricity in your home. 75 years ago, a handful of farmers and ranchers, united by the common values of honesty, responsibility, equality, and solidarity, and armed only with a powerful purpose, took the lead, banded together, and answered the call. Today, a new generation of electric co-op members, just like the farmers, ranchers, and rural families did 75 years ago, must again answer the call. We are the owners of the co-ops and are the fabric of the communities in which we live and work. And as faith and trust in other institutions sink, the need to empower, inspire, and mobilize each other to take care of ourselves, our neighbors, and our communities rises. Let it be known, it is time for this new generation to turn the lights on again, to power, protect, and grow our communities, not just with the electricity of our infrastructure, but with the electricity of our purpose, passion, ideas, and will, to ensure that the quality of life in all of the communities in which we live and work is improved. For our purpose is a mighty one, to power communities and empower members to improve the quality of their lives. And when we live up to our purpose, we relight the American dream. Think back now about the profound impact our founding members made 3/4 of a century ago and grab hold of that same spirit, because we are the electric cooperative members of tomorrow, and our work has just begun.
When I think about, this idea of a purpose to what we're doing, when I was younger in high school, I had a job. I worked at McDonald's, and that allowed me to earn a little money so I can go to the movies. And then I moved to Washington, began my career as a lobbyist, and then I started working for NRECA. And that's when I found my purpose, the idea of working with cooperatives. And once you find that purpose, there's nothing more liberating. It puts meaning in everything that you do. I am so fortunate that every day I get up and I get to do what I love to do. Now, about 5.5 years ago, I got fired from a great job that I loved. I was working with co-ops. And it took me about 24 hours to decide, well, I'm just going to keep doing it. So instead of doing it for someone else, I'm just going to start doing it for myself. And then I connected with a group called CDS Consulting Co-op, which is a co-op of 35 consultants that formed a co-op of those consultants that helps co-ops. So I'm not kidding about this co-op geekiness. It's through and through. But it's great to be with like-minded and like-hearted people in the work that I do. And obviously one of the goals is that every one of you will feel empowered to be an ambassador for 9-Star and for this cooperative business model and the power that it holds. And this is just a little chart that sort of can take you through the steps that you might be going on. So obviously the first part is learning more about it, being inspired by it, and ultimately with the idea of taking action. And there's things that each of you can do. So when I go to the grocery store and I have a choice between Tropicana orange juice and Florida's Natural, I choose Florida's Natural because that's a cooperative. So the little things that we can do like that. I choose to do my banking with a credit union because it's a cooperatively owned financial institution. With all respect to my community banks, I love community banks too because they're based in the community. I got problems with the Wells Fargos and the Citibanks of the world because I think they're more extractive of wealth from communities, whereas if we bank with local institutions, it recycles that money for us. So there are actions that each of us can take individually to showcase. And obviously on this education front, we already discussed that no one here learned about co-ops with a limited exception of one economics course. So these kinds of trainings are critically important. And the fact, that's a very large blackboard, I know, that we get to this sense of this indoctrination, and which is a strong word. But if we're doing it for a good cause, I'm very okay with it. Because we need to make sure that people truly understand the value of the business model and how we can continue to use the business model as a strategic advantage to attract more people to it. This is a series of books that are all been come out in the last few years. This one, Screw Business as Usual, by Richard Branson. He's the eccentric owner of Atlantic Airlines, Virgin Airlines. If you're rich and crazy, you're eccentric. If you're poor and crazy, you're just crazy. He's eccentric, but he mentions co-ops about a dozen times in that book. They're all listed as resources in the handout that you have. This is another book. This is by the CEO of NISC, Vern Dosh, certainly one of my co-op heroes, about how the cooperative business model has been critical to the way that they do business. So just some other resources that you can out there. Some simple things. This comes to us from SEMO down in southeast Missouri. Those are actually the pictures of linemen that are painted on the trucks, so that's kind of cool. Builds a good, nice community spirit. This photo comes to us from a credit union called North Carolina State Employees Credit Union. If you look on the mirror closely, it says State Employees Credit Union, meet SECU's owners, and then on the bottom it says you're looking good. This mirror is in the branch of every one of their 250 branches. So that when you walk in there, it's the second largest credit union in the country, second only to Navy Federal, and they only operate in North Carolina. I know I've been here a couple of days now. I've passed at least 3 what I call payday lenders. We have a different name for them growing up in Brooklyn. Do you know what we call them? Loan sharks, because that's what they are. They charge an interest rate of 300%. $500 loan, you'll pay a $75 fee, 23% interest rate. If you're a nanosecond late, you get more penalties and fees. And they take people who are most vulnerable and trap them in this cycle of debt so that they cannot get out. So that the folks at this credit union said, we're going to do something different. And they created a salary advance program that works the same way as a payday lending program with a couple of important exceptions. Instead of a 300% rate, it's an 8% rate. You get 1 hour free financial counseling when you take out the loan. And when you pay the loan back, 5% of what you pay back goes into a savings account in your own name. So that at the end of 18 months, you have now saved enough money, you no longer need that payday lending product. It is their most profitable product that they offer, and they want no one to use it. And over the 10 years that they've been doing this, they've cycled some 40,000 people off of that payday lending product, generating about $80 million in savings. This credit union grows 8,000 members a month. 8,000 members a month. How much money do you think they spend on advertising? 0. Because when you do things like this, what do people do? They tell everybody, right? Excuse me. Their former CEO said, why would I spend money on advertising telling the world how great I am? I know how great I am already. I'd rather have my members tell other people how great I am. So all the money that they would spend on advertising, they put into member service to create programs like this to grow their business. And I think it's just a wonderful example of the cooperative difference. So the mirror is just a sort of simple of that. I've been talking about that mirror for a while now, so now as I'm traveling around the country, I'm seeing more mirrors pop up in lobbies of co-ops, which I think is great. It's just a simple way that we can showcase the different things that we're doing. This is the Operation Roundup and Youth Tour. We've kind of spoken about that. What I'm on a mission to do, and I work as an advisor and a consultant to NRECA on the Youth Tour program, is that I want to see every one of those young people that go through a youth tour come back and do an internship at their co-op. You're obviously doing a great job with interns already, exposing folks to it. Because the best way to keep people in our communities is to never let them leave. You know, make sure that they understand that there's good jobs here in the community working with co-ops. And on the Operation Roundup, you guys are doing a wonderful job on the opt-out, so hats off to you. That's just me pandering to an Indiana audience, so there you are. Those are your youth at the youth tour. Some 1,800 kids from all across the country come. It's a great experience. I know a gentleman who was in the class yesterday was a chaperone, and he had a really great experience doing that, so that was fun. Scholarships, I know tonight's a big night. We're going to be giving out the scholarships. The same thing there. I asked that if we're going to give out scholarships, that we ask for a return on that investment. that, make it available that those young people who get scholarships would get internships in our co-op as well. Let them go off, learn some things in school, let them lobby their schools to teach about co-ops so that they can learn about co-ops and bring that back here as well. .coop is a domain name that is only available to cooperatives. It's my email address is aschwartz@thecooperativeway.coop. I still get people say .coop, .coop, what is that? Yes, I raise chickens, whatever. But it becomes a teachable moment for folks that you can speak about what a cooperative is. Energy efficiency programs. Do you guys have one here at 9-Star? Yeah. How's it work? What's the purpose of an energy efficiency program?
Like we have a time of use
Okay.
thing
Right.
to kind of convince customers to use certain products at certain hours of the day.
Right?
To be more efficient.
All right. And what's the purpose of an energy efficiency program? What are we asking the members to do?
Be more efficient with the way they use their energy.
And by being more efficient, they do what? Save money by doing what? Use less energy. What do you guys sell? Okay, so you want them to use less of the product that you sell. Coca-Cola, McDonald's ever say that? Hey, you've had enough Big Macs. Lay low, right? So we're telling our members, our customers, we want you to use less of the product that we sell. Not many businesses do that. But because we're a cooperative, we can do that because we realize what's in the members' best interest is in our best interest in the long haul. And I think we need to make that the connective tissue for folks so that they understand why we're doing those things. This isn't a PowerPoint slide, this is art, but it is the 10 Reasons Co-ops Rock. And this poster comes to us from the good folks at TESSA, which is the Toolbox for Education for Social Action. They also created this game called Coopoly. What's the object of Monopoly? Get all the money and get all the property, right? And everyone else has nothing. Now, wouldn't it be fun to live in a community like that, where you had everything and no one had anything else, right? All right, now it wouldn't be so nice. So the object of Coopoly is there's only one game piece. 3 to 8 people can play. And you win or lose depending on whether you successfully form a new cooperative. So it has some skills building into how new co-ops get started. And they practice what I call Robin Hood pricing. You can go on their website and you can say how much you want to pay for the game. And they will send it to you. So kind of a fun thing to do. Operation Connect, spoke about that, about connecting with other co-ops, the credit union example in Virginia, but any other co-ops as well. Are there local purchasing co-ops and folks to connect with? Makes a lot of sense. This is a partnership between a credit union and a food co-op that they brand the credit card with the co-op's name. And then every time you swipe a credit card, there's fees that are associated with that. So a few of the basis points go to the food co-op to their Operation Roundup program. Spoke about your co-op connections card already. This is a cool story. Speaking about cooperation among cooperatives, these 12 co-ops on the bottom are all in southern Minnesota and eastern South Dakota, and they formed a 13th co-op because the IOU that was in that area, Alliant, was represented, all their customers are in the yellow lines. They wanted to sell out, they wanted to get out of Minnesota. So all of those co-ops came together to buy out Alliant. So now those 48,000 people that were once customers are now members of those different co-ops. So very cool story, took about 2.5 years to execute, was not an inexpensive process, but now we have a bunch of new co-op members. On the governance side, I've had some conversations with Mike and with some of the board members about this. I'll be talking a little bit more about it tonight. Making sure that our process, as we were doing in the 7 principles exercise, that folks know what the governance process is and how they can run for the board and how we encourage participation. Now there's another video, but given time, I'm gonna roll through that. It is a fun video, so but it will be here. It's about a food co-op. You can certainly take a look at it, but I like to be very respectful of people's time, so we're gonna just skip that for the moment. This is another one of the co-ops I've done work with, Organic Valley, and I'm not making any comment about organic versus conventional. That's your business. But they are a very cool co-op. They've been around about 28 years. They started with 7 farmers with the idea if they wanted to bring organic dairy to the market. Now, fast forward, they are 1,800 farmers in 37 states, including Indiana, and over $1 billion in revenue. And my work with them is because the founders are still there and they're kind of moving on, they want to make sure that they stay very closely connected to the cooperative way of doing business. I mentioned the Red Leg program. This was a co-op in Alaska that borrowed money so that they could open up a food co-op in their community, which is obviously a very nice story of cooperation among cooperatives. One of the things that I've been working on for a number of years is this idea of creating an investment vehicle for people to invest in co-ops, because right now you've got a 401k program and your money can be buying Duke Energy's stock, and you cannot buy an investment in the cooperative business model. So this is just a big sky idea of being able to do that. Now, one of the things I am drilling down, and some folks might know the term crowdfunding, where you're raising money from other people locally. Well, if you think about to the history of co-ops, we were the original crowdfunders. You know, we were going door to door, farm to farm, ranch to ranch, raising $5, right? So we were cool before we knew it. So maybe that's another way of thinking that we can raise investment dollars from the people in our community, giving them something tangible that they can invest in, that they can actually affect the investment by their patronage of the business. I write a column for RE Magazine, and I just submitted the one on this idea, so I hope they accept it, because I think it'll be a fun thing to do. This comes to us from a co-op in Illinois where Keith used to serve on the board, and you see it says happy 37th birthday. How often do you celebrate your anniversary in your personal lives? That's not a hard question. How often do you celebrate your anniversary? Annually, right? Because if you don't celebrate it annually, you're not going to have an anniversary to celebrate the next year. Trust me on that one too. All right. So what we do in business is we tend to celebrate the anniversaries that have a 0 on it or a 5. Right? But if your 75th year is important, then your 76th year is even more important. And your 77th year is even more important than that. So why not celebrate every one of our anniversaries? Make it a holiday in the office, and not a holiday where we get the day off, but a holiday where we commit to work harder, where we honor our heritage and our history of our co-op, and remind people of what our forefathers did and what we're going to continue to do for the future. This also comes to us from a food co-op. The accountants in the room get nervous when they hear 10% off. It doesn't have to be 10% off, but just some sort of member appreciation, something that we show the members that they're members and we appreciate the business that they do with us. That is my license plate. I'm not kidding about this co-op geekness. I'm through and through. That Fredericksburg Food Co-op is not yet opened, but I'm part of a startup group that's trying to get that going. I am trying to get all 50 states to have a Go Co-op license plate. All right. So if anyone here in Indiana gets a Go Co-op license plate, please take a picture of it, send it to me, and I will send you an REI gift card. All right, so deal? I'd love to see that. Once we get all 50 states, we'll be on CNN or Fox News, and we'll have a lot of fun with it. So, there are co-ops in everything that you can possibly imagine. I didn't even talk about preschool co-ops. There's about 1,000 of those. There are funeral co-ops. So literally from cradle to grave, you can have a whole co-op existence, all right, taking care of you. So whatever it is you're thinking about, craft beer is popular now. There's a number of brewery co-ops. In fact, in my billfold here, I have my membership card to the Black Star Pub Brewery. Okay, I'm a member owner. All right, this is in Austin, Texas, and the original T-shirt said, "Walk in like you own the place," because you do. Right? So I'm a bar owner. All right, that's a good sound for me to just about wrap up. All right, you know, this is our heritage, and that's great. What I'm thinking about is 75 years from now, what are people going to say about this generation of co-op leaders? What are we doing to ensure that our co-op is going to be there in the future, and think about our own legacy? For those of you who are on LinkedIn, Facebook for Adults, please meet me up there. I do this cooperative culture exchange group that talks about these kinds of issues on about a monthly basis or so, and would love to have you. That is my contact information. I welcome your comments. I know we're going to do a Survey Monkey thing that you're going to get in a couple of days to get your comments, but I welcome your comments to my face, or if you want to write them down. And I like to close my sessions by thanking you all. The greatest gift that we can give one another is love, because it's infinite in our ability to give it and receive it. The second greatest gift that we can give each other is our time, for the exact opposite reason: it's finite. So for the past 3 hours, you have given me that gift, and I thank you very much for it. I wish you all the best. So thanks so much.